It's clear that for Maimonides, the overflow in which the virtuous person participates is a knowledge about the cosmos, and especially about the order of things in this sublunary realm. It is, in fact, the Creator's knowledge of his creation, and especially the most general aspects of creation, emanating down through the intellects that must govern each celestial sphere. The overflow from God, therefore, carries information about nature and its laws. Among other things, just the kind of understanding that would allow an individual to successfully navigate their way around the obstacles to flourishing that the world regularly presents. Thus, a person who has perfected their intellect in the proper way will not just care less about what might be lost on a ship at sea, but they will also know not to get on the doomed ship in the first place. For example, because they know that a storm is coming, or they see that the ship is poorly constructed or badly captained. They will likewise know not to get in that house, looking at the house and understanding the nature of domestic construction and the winds that are coming its way. Perhaps we should not take the relevant passage absolutely literally. After all, everyone is bound to get a scratch or a bruise now and then, even the virtuous person, and even while, perhaps especially while, he is attending to the divine overflow. But I do think that Maimonides means what he says here. The person enjoying divine providence through the overflow will have greater control over what happens to him, and not just over his responses to it. A person with a deep knowledge of the order of nature will have extraordinarily accurate predictive powers, and will thus know what the course of nature typically brings in certain circumstances. He will rarely be taken by surprise, and thus in the worldly conditions of his life, moral luck will be reduced to an absolute minimum. Now, I admit that what I'm suggesting makes Maimonides' view of divine providence out to be very naturalistic and reductive. Basically, the more you know about the order of nature, the better off you are in navigating your way through life. But that is precisely what I think Maimonides is up to here. In that sense, my reading differs from that of Moshe ibn Tibbon, Samuel's son, when he insists that the advantage gained by the intellectually perfected person is one of astrologically informed divination. Nor is there any inconsistency between the two aspects of Maimonides' theory of providence that I have examined. The intellectual condition of the virtuous person both guides him successfully through the world with minimal harm and makes him indifferent to whatever harms or evils he does happen to encounter despite the protection provided by providence. To put it another way, there are two means to reducing the role of moral luck in one's life and pursuit of happiness: controlling things in the world around you and controlling your responses to them. The ancient Stoics advocated only the latter. Maimonides believes that both strategies are available to the sage. Notice that on neither aspect does providence consist in the active and willful intervention of God in human affairs. It's not that God chooses in particular to reward the person who has united himself to the overflow. Rather, quite naturalistically, the knowledge acquired by the virtuous person through the overflow affords him an advantage in the world. It's quote number 7. The overflow of the divine intellect guides the actions of righteous men and perfects the knowledge of excellent men with regard to what they know. Returning, finally, to the problem of evil. Why then do innocent people suffer? Maimonides' response is that, in essence, they don't. If a person suffers misfortune, it's their own fault. They deserve it. If a virtuous person suffers, it is, regardless of appearances, because he has done something that has taken him outside the protection of providence, if only for a short time. I gave a talk like this to Columbia recently, and Christian Mercer came up to me after. She said, while you were giving this talk, my bicycle was stolen from outside. And I said, well... The bond to God, she didn't appreciate that. The bond to God and the overflow can be broken by a lapse in attention or a redirection of the mind to lesser things. This is quote number 8. If a man's thought is free from distraction, if he apprehends God, may he be exalted in the right way and rejoices in what he apprehends, that individual can never be afflicted with evil of any kind, for he is with God and God is with him. When, however, he abandons him, may he be exalted, and is thus separated from God and God separated from him, he becomes in consequence of this a target for every evil that may happen to befall him. For the thing that necessarily brings about providence and deliverance from the sea of chance consists in that intellectual overflow. When the bond with the overflow is broken, the virtuous person is no better off than the wicked person or a non-human animal. They are all on their own, abandoned to the world, come what may. Quote number 9. Yet an impediment may prevent for some time the overflow reaching the excellent and good man in question, or again it was not obtained at all by such and such imperfect and wicked men, and therefore the chance occurrences that befell them happened. Full responsibility for the disconnection from the divine overflow lies with the individual, not God. As he says, as Maimonides says, it is clear that we are the cause of this hiding of the face, and we are the agents who produce this separation. Similarly, the prosperity of the wicked person is not a true flourishing, since this person is not enjoying the highest good and intellectual perfection. Moreover, the prosperity that has come the way of the wicked person is totally undeserved and does not represent a reward from God for anything that he has done. In fact, this person will have no control over their flourishing, and that's an important part of Maimonides' Theodician response. Rather, the vicious person, being unprotected and at the mercy of nature, it just so happens that chance has brought them apparently fine things. But their possession and enjoyment of them is equally subject to fortune, unlike the case of the virtuous person, and certain to be short-lived. Thank you.